spiritual entrepreneur. He has realized that if you want to reach people, you got to meet them where they are. In former days, people used to walk the streets. Do you remember those days? When you wanted to experience something, you just went out onto the street, right? In your town. You just went to town square or to that happening kind of street, you know, like in Philly, it's South Street. In New York, it was the Village, Lower East Side. Every city has got its happening kind of space. Nowadays, people don't walk the streets, people walk the internet. They walk their devices. You ever seen people walking their devices? Have you ever been walking your devices? Still am, right? Absolutely. So, just to give you an idea of their statistics, because you may think, so what, you know? He's got 250,000 followers on Facebook, 400,000 YouTube subscribers, 15,000 WhatsApp projects. He runs two television projects. They run daily shows on the main private channels in India, or weekly shows where they broadcast Krishna conscious messages. They do from Shastra, from meet-up discussion groups, to medical and cooking advice, from a repository of all the lectures of all the speakers to what you can't even imagine. It's quite comprehensive. So here is a person who has a vision and he built his team to execute it. He's super busy. He's a surgeon. They're very trained and very sought after people, and they have really not much time because it's all about life and death. So he has built his team and he's just overseeing because he's a spiritual entrepreneur and he's providing vision to his team on a constant basis. What we're going to do this afternoon is we're going to talk a little bit about sense of identity and how we develop and what's our own personal role in this spiritual entrepreneurship. And tomorrow we're going to get more into action mode as far as communicating your plan, pitching it, what are different rules for communication, etc. So, as you can see, as soon as you start doing things, everything goes sideways. And that is the way of the world. That's why, honestly speaking, we're going back to the old school printout. Have you ever tried to make a presentation and it didn't work out, it didn't fly? I guess it has happened to everybody. No electricity or your technical skills may just not be up to scratch, which in my case, I don't have tech karma, and I somehow dislike spending hundreds of hours learning about design, etc. So, that's better. Anyhow, you get the idea. So you have this thing on paper. You can just look at it. Being a leader, a spiritual entrepreneur. Does everybody have a copy? Can you pass it around? Who does not have a copy? Can you pass it on to Maharaj, please? As we mentioned earlier on this morning, you start with where you're at, with yourself. You are your first employee, your first boss, your first friend. So start with yourself. Individual who is capable of contributing by talent, knowledge, skill, and work. That's how everybody starts out. That's the building block of any organization. Then after a while, when you keep on practicing, you realize that there are other people around me. Did you notice that kind of change in consciousness that happens when a child realizes there are other people in the family? You notice? It may take some time, right? So, but eventually that thought comes, oh, there are other people besides me, and maybe we should make it work together. So then you become what's called a team member. You learn how to contribute individually to the group and their objectives as a team player. Like a child who realizes it's not just me, I got brothers, sisters, I got parents, his grandparents, his uncles. There's a sense, a wider sense of identity that's there. Then if you move up, number 3, somebody can read?
Manager. Organize people and resources. Is effective and sufficient.
Usually that's as far as it goes in materialistic or small-minded organization. They really worship and adore the manager. And have you heard about management and MBAs and courses, business administration, etc., etc.? They really value this breed because they're the people who can get things done. They're the people who put scores on the scoreboard. But here we got 2 more people that are very important. Somebody can point them out to us? Achuta. Archita. Number 4.
Effective leader, leading through commitment, vision, high standards.
That person you would want to have in your board of directors, you know. They're people who are knowledgeable, they're accomplished, and they have done many things, and they can contribute more through their wisdom. And we have number 5, somebody from the back.
5, executive leader, guide, mentoring through humility and intense desire.
So for us, that is like the spiritual guide, the mentor, the wise person, who is just, not just experienced, but very thoughtful, very mature, and really wants you to flourish. One of my main mentors once told me, rather be in a place where people love you and people want you to succeed than to be in a place where there's a lot of resources and opportunities but people want you to fail. Have you had experiences of these 2 scenarios? First scenario, the person who really wants you to succeed, who really believes in you, who really wants to see you flourish. There might be nothing else there except that person's good wishes. Or a situation where there was resources, there was opportunities, but people wanted you to fail. So look out for such people and invest time in cultivating those relationships. Initially, they all start out as number 1. So as an exercise right now, we're in the post-lunch phase of food coma, where blood is in the stomach and it's slightly more empty up in the headspace. Ask yourself, as a small exercise right now, just for a couple of moments, and put numbers to all these 5. Who am I of these 5? And you can use multiples, and just don't cross them off, but like, if you think you're a talented individual, you give yourself an 8. Because there's some room from scale of 1 to 10, okay? 1 the worst, 10 the greatest. But unless you're from America, you will not give yourself a 10. Okay? So, can you do that for a moment? Just, do you have one? Just take a moment to go through them and put numbers besides those different 5 personalities. Who's done? Who needs more time? Okay, you got another 30 seconds. We're generous today. There are no right and wrong answers, it's just how you feel generally right now about yourself. Okay, we'd like to hear some realizations. How did you find that? Was that difficult for you to do that? Who found it difficult? Who found it okay? Who found it easy? Okay. You think it would be a good thing to ask yourself this question like at least once a year? One of my main mentors, every end of the year, him and his wife, they go to a retreat for a week. And they review their previous year and they make plans for the next year. He's one of the most accomplished preachers and spiritual entrepreneurs in our movement. So, everyone starts out small. One time, some city people went to the countryside to a village. And they were received by the village board. And so they asked them, any famous people coming from this village? Any wealthy people? Any successful people? Anyone born here who really made it in the world? And the village elders, they said no. 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 So the city people got a little annoyed. So they asked, so then, what kind of people are born here in this village? And the village elder said, only babies are born in this village. Start small. Srila Prabhupada started small, and he was happy to start small. He was not anxious that I have to do this right now. He invested his time in himself, in preparing himself, in writing his books, in formulating his plan, in communicating his mission and vision. And he was not afraid to fail. The fastest way how to learn something is by teaching it. Thank you, sir. You just came in on the right. You know, we rehearsed this, you know, we planned this. Have you ever found yourself knowing not much about something, but then you started teaching it, and all of a sudden you realize, like, whoa, I better get serious. I better start doing my homework. So if you want to become an expert in your field, and I believe you do, because you're here, you spend time, energy, money, and effort to come here, to attend this seminar. Teaching is a big word. Again, in some cultures, they really like teachers, and in some cultures, they really are not so teacher-friendly. Let's say, start talking about your cause. And you realize by more that you talk about it, the more you will learn what your homework is, where there's room for improvement. Where you have like ambiguity, there's like gray areas, there's doubts, there's question marks. Write all that stuff down. Do your research, go deeper into it. Have you ever found yourself talking about something that you just picked up on the internet or somebody said on the street and you just repeated it, and then other people challenged you on it who knew what was actually what, and it made you look, how did it make you look? How did it make you feel? Stupid, yes. So a leader is as good as the information that he or she gets. As a leader, you may not have the time to do all the research yourself, but make sure that the information that you expose yourself to is accurate, is broad, and is lucid. How many of you have heard of Ambani? Mukesh Ambani, richest man in India, one of the most powerful industrialists in the world. His daughter is just getting engaged, the daughter of Piramal, one of the big supporters of Chowpatty. His personal secretary chants 16 rounds. He's a Chowpatty devotee, an MBA person. That MBA person, that really super smart business mind person, his first and foremost duty is to read all the newspapers, business publications, and websites for 2 to 3 hours every day, and to give the concise points of information to that guy. He hates anybody who is in the mode of goodness or in the mode of ignorance, because only passion is what he can relate to. If you're in goodness or in ignorance, he cannot deal with you. If you're in passion, you're on. So the point I was making was, a leader is as good as the information that he or she gets exposed to. Ask yourself, what are my sources of information? How do I consume information? Are you on the news or are you off the news? Is your knowledge just based on Wikipedia and Google Guru? Or is there also Bhagavatam and Gita and Shastra? How do you cross-check? How much do you question what gets presented to you? These are all important facts, because we are a product of our environment. And if you want to teach, you can't separate it from doing research. And that has a lot to do with the type of information you expose yourself to. One very important question that people will ask you is, and you should ask yourself, so what? So what? When you write a paper, a thesis, you make a presentation, you pitch, you want to sell something, you want to convince somebody, always, continuously keep yourself focused on this. So what? So what? What does it mean? What does it amount to? What is actually behind that? What do you imply? What do you intend to communicate? So never stop asking the so what question. Any questions so far?
So what?
So what? Thank you.
So what means we should ask ourselves or anyone who is presenting?
No, you should ask yourself, because that's what people are going to ask you. So what? Like you just told me that you got the best product, and if 1% of China will buy it, then you will make $50 billion in 1 year. And the person will ask you, so what? You're supposed to be a spiritual person. What does $50 billion mean to you? Are you ready to go all in and risk your life for that? Is this you? Is this what you're supposed to be doing? Is this what you stand for? Is this what you believe in? So what? Does it have meaning to you? And what does it mean to me? Unless you're a corporate investor and you want to make money, is that information relevant and useful? Not really. So, knowing your audience has a lot to do with this. And the audience may change, but after a while you get used to this idea that people will ask you this question, so what? And try to communicate it in a very concise and short way. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, there's 3 different key areas that I just wanted to bring up, because people oftentimes ask, so what is it that I should be doing with my life? And usually you have the areas of skill, confidence, and will. And where they overlap, do you understand these 3? Skill, confidence, and will? And where they overlap, this is called the sweet zone, or the sweet spot, or I call it sweet surrender. Oftentimes here is where you have the most impact, is where you have the most potency, where you can achieve the most. Where your skill, your confidence, and